appreciate everyone here. It's obviously a busy day, lots of press conferences, we understand that. So let's just jump right into it. I want to thank you all for joining us today for this important announcement. I'm joined here today by Eliza Darris, Amelia Gonzalez-Avalos, and lawyers who were instrumental in court proceedings, which we'll talk about in a moment. Rachel Kitsey-Collins from Lockridge, Grindle, and Nowen, who represented the Minnesota DFL, and Simon Trautmann, who represented Noah McCourt in his role as an individual plaintiff. Last evening, the Minnesota DFL State Central Committee met and unanimously passed one of the most significant reforms in our party's 77-year history, a reform that has been nearly 6 years in the making. And just by way of background, let me tell you how we got here. In 2016, I was out canvassing with a young Latina organizer who told me how hard she was working to turn out the vote, despite the fact that she could not vote herself as a dreamer. And upon further conversation, she told me how much she wanted to be a delegate to the convention, but could not because of our party rules. Now, I promised her at that point on the spot that I would change that. And in 2018, I authored a resolution which was unanimously passed by the DFL State Convention in Rochester to allow individuals who were not eligible to vote to fully participate in our party process. This includes dreamers, non-citizens, felons who are still on paper and have not had their voting rights restored, and many others. Now, unfortunately, my enthusiasm with the passage of this resolution was dampened in later months when we found out that there were state statutes that govern who could fully participate in our party. Now, we worked legislative angles for many months only to discover there was no support from Republicans for making changes to these statutes. And so accordingly, in 2020, the DFL party filed a lawsuit challenging the Minnesota laws which unconstitutionally limited voting in the precinct caucuses to eligible voters, thereby restricting the rights of dreamers and individuals who have not been fully restored to their civil rights, many of whom are dedicated members of the DFL party, to fully participate in the caucuses. And while we lost that decision in the lower courts, we appealed to the Minnesota Court of Appeals, along with an individual plaintiff and longtime friend, Noah McCourt, whose lawyer, Simon Trautmann, is here with us today. Now, just a few weeks ago, on January 3rd, 2022, the Minnesota Court of Appeals came to a decision on our appeal. While they did not specifically address the constitutionality of the statute, they did find two criteria that clear the way for the DFL to open participation in the precinct caucuses to all party members, regardless of whether they are eligible to vote. First, the court made clear that the provisions of Minnesota law that punish voting by non-eligible voters do not apply to caucuses. Specifically, the court found that the criminal penalties in those Minnesota statutes, which provide that it is a felony to vote illegally, only apply to voting in elections, not in caucuses. And so accordingly, the DFL may extend an invitation to non-eligible voters to vote and be elected delegates and officers at the precinct caucus without subjecting them to risk of criminal prosecution. Second, the court concluded that the only enforcement power lies with the party themselves and caucus goers, who may vote on whether or not someone is eligible to participate in our party caucuses. So in other words, the party gets to decide who can participate, vote, and be elected a delegate or officer at the caucuses. And the only group that gets to decide whether a particular individual can participate is the other caucus goers vis-a-vis our party rules. So these two conclusions create a legal safe harbor for the Minnesota DFL to broadly open participation in the precinct caucuses, which means after 6 long years, our party can finally live its values. As a party that supports a pathway to citizenship for the millions of dreamers and supports restoring voting rights to millions of ex-felons, this is a huge step in the right direction. Our party recognizes that we must invite all party members to participate at every level of our caucus and convention process so that all members may have the opportunity to endorse candidates, to run and select party leadership, to introduce resolutions, and vote on matters such as a party platform and our action agenda. I am pleased to announce that our party passed this last night unanimously, and that our party is going to be opening up our doors to thousands of Minnesotans thousands of people in this state who want to participate in our precinct caucuses 6 days from today. With that, I'm going to now ask Simon Trautmann, who is the lawyer for individual plaintiff Noah McCourt, to say a few words. Simon?
Thank you, Chairman Martin, and thank you everybody for joining us this morning. And I also want to say a special thank you in recognition of my colleague, Amrita Singh, who worked really hard on this case, and also Rachel Kitsy Collins and her team members who represented the DFL, and their arguments were brilliant and compelling and really instrumental to rolling back what frankly are some of the most restrictive voting rights laws in the country. And what I mean by that is I'm not aware of any other state that not only restricted voting rights for people who are on probation, but also restricted their ability to organize politically and be a delegate in a political party, which means not just selecting the candidate, but also advocating for the platform, which in addition to the party feeling was wholly unconstitutional because of their rights. Noah McCourt also said, and when he came to me with this case, said he asked the question. He said, "Could I go to jail? Could I violate my probation if I advocated for what I believed in? If I fought for this party platform?" And the answer was, it's not clear. The law says you can't, and the law is not clear on what the penalties may be. And so I'm regret that Mr. McCourt can't be with us, but I just want to also acknowledge his incredible courage and internal toughness and integrity to say, I don't want to violate the law, and I think the law is wrong. And so what we were able to clarify with the courts, what the courts clarified is, one, Mr. McCourt won't face a criminal penalty for exercising his First Amendment rights inside the party. And two, the government can't assess a penalty to him, a civil penalty, which also is incredibly important. And third, they also found for the first time that the courts found for the first time that the threat of government action, if the government threatens to take action, but that's enough to take away your speech rights. And so we're really grateful for the party's leadership. I'm grateful for Noah McCourt as a candidate for county attorney who's looking for delegates. I'm really grateful that everybody who wants to participate in our political process, or more people can than could before. And so thank you again to the party and to all the attorneys that worked on this. But we have more rights for more people. And this is a great day for Mr. McCourt, but it's also a great day for the party. And it's a great day for everybody who cares about the Constitution, everybody who thinks the First Amendment's important, and that people should have the right to organize to say what the government should or shouldn't be.
Thank you so much, Simon. I greatly appreciate those words. Next up is Eliezer Darris, who has been, I think, one of the most instrumental young leaders fighting for the restoration of civil rights for not only ex-felons, but many members of our community. He's been on the front lines standing up for and helping to fight for civil rights of all kinds, including voting rights restoration. And at this point, it's my honor to introduce Eliezer Darris, who is a co-executive director of the Minnesota Freedom Fund. Eliezer.
Thank you so much, Ken Martin. And I really appreciate the opportunity to speak on. This is a historic day. This is a day that has, for me, been a really long time in the making. I think despite everything, all of the accolades, all of the work, the struggle, the boots on the ground, the door knocking, canvassing, and 15, 20 degree weather, the helping candidates get their voices out. Despite everything that I have done, including paying taxes, abiding by all the rules, regulations, restrictions, guidelines created by policy and lawmakers. Despite all of that, I have never been able to participate in the process of helping to elect who's going to represent my voice, whether that is who's going to be the one that's helping to make sure the potholes get filled in my community, whether or not we have adequate parks and recreation access for the youth within my community, who's going to be representative on the school board for the young people within my community, who's going to help to push the laws that are enforced within my. I have been unable to cast any type of ballot in any way, shape, or form for any of that for all of the years that I've been out, because I am on felony probation. And so while I am on the forefront of helping to push forward democracy in some of the most far-flung places within our communities that other people have oftentimes overlooked, I've been there. I haven't been able to hold that little red sticker that says I voted. I haven't been able to pass forth any document at a caucus or a convention to say, I attest to this person being a sound person to represent my voice and to represent the views of what I believe is going to be a healthy and productive community for me to live in. And so this is a really historic day. I have been part and parcel on the outer skirts of society. This right here makes democracy just that much more accessible to me, just that much more closer to being able to cast the ballot. Now, we also know that the state Supreme Court right now has under advisement a lawsuit. I'm party to that lawsuit to open up overall access to voting for people who are currently on felony probation or parole. Again, we are out here. We're your neighbors, right? We are parents, right? We are the people who are servicing your vehicle. We are executives at the executive level. We are all over society, and yet we are almost invisible members of society because we can't fully participate in this democratic experience that we are all currently building and growing out together. Some of us are able to participate more fully than others, and I believe that that is fundamentally wrong. And I'm glad that the courts also recognize and agree with the DFL party and agreed certainly with Noah. Noah is very brave, has been on the forefront of so many different critical legal reforms in our state and has actually made the state significantly better. I'm glad that the court sided with opening up access to democracy now. And I hope that both parties make the determination to open up access to taking part in this democratic experiment that we are all co-building together. And so I would say for any of my brothers or sisters who are out there who are on felony probation and parole, get involved in a caucus. Go to the caucus, go to sign up, whether you go to the RNC side or whether you go to the DFL side, go and sign up to participate in caucus. You're going to feel a little uncomfortable, but there's going to be plenty of people there who will be able to answer questions for you and tell them you want to be a delegate. Get to the convention and get to that floor and pass a vote for who do you want to represent your voice. Go and do it today. Go and do it now. You have until February 1st. Go and make it happen. I'm already going to be attending the caucus. I'm already signed up. I want all of you all who are out right now to go and get signed up as well.
Thank you so much, Eliza. I greatly appreciate that. Our next speaker is also no stranger to fighting for civil rights for not just her community, but for thousands of Minnesotans who live in the shadows. Emilia Gonzalez-Avalos, who is the Executive Director of Unidos, Minnesota. Emilia?
Thank you, Chairman. My name is Emilia Gonzalez-Avalos. As you said, I am the Executive Director of Unidos, Minnesota. We are a Latino-based statewide organization building power for social, racial, and economic justice. And I was undocumented for over 20 years, and now as a permanent resident, I cannot vote. And before this ruling, I was ineligible to caucus. For way too long, decisions about our lives, our destinies, and our communities have been made without us. Restoring the vote and immigration reform are two of the most important legislative proposals of our times. And while these two measures continue to be stuck at the federal level, and with that, restoration of voting rights and pathways to citizenship remain in limbo, this expansion ruling is a critical down payment towards a sizable democracy that meets the promises of those who have fought and continue to fight for equality across our country. As John Lewis once said, a democracy cannot thrive where power remains unchecked and justice is reserved for a selected few. For the progressive movement, these steps towards the right direction means that the time undocumented Minnesotans 18 and over, and who have for many years built a powerful pro-immigrant voter bloc, are bringing that power from the streets and from the community into a caucus near you. The times for many of us to watch our issues being prioritized or not from a window or while we man tables in hallways and corridors away from the action are over. I commend the legal team, the Plainfits, for defending this piece tooth and nail, and the leadership of the Minnesota Democratic Farmer and Labor Party for defending our democracy in the best way we possibly can, by opening the front door to historically excluded neighbors, making sure that those affected by the issues in our platforms have a say in the process and can grasp power to truly hold our own side accountable to our shared vision. I am grateful for every single official who supported this important resolution in 2018. From Party Chairman Ken Martin to our friends and partners of Faith in Minnesota, their organizer Catalina Morales, our community leaders like Jovita Morales and Marlene Rojas, who have organized the Latino vote and disciplined hope that one day we will have the right alignment to pass life-changing pro-immigrant legislature in Minnesota. And as I mentioned before, I have been in this country for over 2 decades. Therefore, I have never voted. But like many of my peers and colleagues at Unidos, we know the connection of political power and our ability to pass people-powered, affirming policies at all levels of government. As the organization with the largest Latino GOTV operation in the state, we are beyond excited about the possibilities of 2022. Today is a good day to be progressive and to be Minnesotan. And this year, Unidos we caucus, and one day, Unidos we will vote. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Amelia. Very powerful words. So at this point, we will open it up for questions.
Absolutely. If anyone has any questions, please message me in the chat and I will get you unmuted. I believe folks can also unmute themselves if they would like to jump in with a question.
Hey, Ken, just as long as we have on top of the caucuses, do you know how many of your caucuses will be in person or this contactless option, and how that might affect the participation of this new class of participants?
Yeah, it's a great question, Ryan. We're just going to mute something real quick here. We're going to echo. There you go. Great question, Brian. And roughly 70% of our precinct caucuses have chosen to go to the contactless precinct caucus option that we provided a couple of weeks ago. Most of the units that are remaining in person are in greater Minnesota, as you can imagine. But look, you know, it's hard to say how many people are going to take advantage of this opportunity who weren't able to participate before. We're just breaking the news today, of course, after this vote last night. And so, you know, I hope that we get the word out, you know, wide and far. This is historic. A lot more people who have been working hard in the trenches for change for years, as both Amelia and Eli referenced. Folks who've been working hard to turn out the vote, to support candidates, to support change, but not able to fully participate themselves can now participate in the caucuses. And that's what's historic about this. These are people who are already contributing in so many valuable ways, but not able to have that right to participate in this most important part of democracy, the selection of our candidates who represent our values and shaping our party platform. And so it's this historic. I don't know quite know the answer. We'll know, of course, after the fact. But my hope is that this allows as many people who want to participate to now be able to. So, and I hope it's a lot of people. Other questions?
Yeah, I have one question, just a clarification on something. So expansion of participation applies to participating in caucuses, does it also include like being a delegate or being in like leadership positions? That's what I understood. I just want to make sure I had that right.
Full participation. They
Okay.
could run for party office. They could serve as this next state chair of the DFL, a next county unit chair, precinct chair. They can run as a delegate. There's nothing that prevents them from full participation within our DFL party process.
Thank you.
Ken, is this typical around other state parties around the country? You're in a position, you know that type of information?
You know, I think we are really leading in a lot of ways. Other state parties have some restrictions. There are some that, you know, have allowed people who are not eligible to vote to participate for some time. But I think we are probably the most expansive in terms of allowing full participation at every level in the party process, as well as running for party position, helping to pass, to shape our party platform and endorse candidates. And then again, that's because of the unique system we already have in place. The participants in our party process at the grassroots level enjoy a little bit more power than a lot of delegates in other states to help shape the future of this party. And so we are really proud of this. It's historic for the Minnesota DFL. I think it's historic, like Eli said, for democracy and for people in this state. And I certainly hope the Republican Party follows suit here, changes their bylaws to allow people who want to participate to fully participate. But yeah, I do think Minnesota is a leader here, and not surprisingly, I'm really proud of what we were able to do. And by we, this is not just the DFL. I really want to emphasize that Noah McCourt, who is an individual plaintiff here, you know, Noah is a former Republican, and he's been on the front lines of fighting for civil rights for a long time in this state. And you know, this is just one of many things he's been able to accomplish, but his voice was really important in this conversation. And I hope that you guys reflect that this was not just a DFL-led effort. It was an effort led by individuals who've been deprived their right to participate as well.
Are there any other questions?
I do want to just thank, before we go, I want to thank the lawyers here. I mean, we get to get up and, you know, act like we did a lot of work here. You know, I guess in some ways, you know, we did by continuing to champion this, but I can't thank Rachel Kitsey Collins enough from our firm, Lockridge Grindle now, and Simon Trautmann. I think they've been at this for some time, as I mentioned, and without their dogged diligence and belief that this was not only the right thing to do, but to stick with it and to see us to this point, it never would have happened. So thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Simon, for that. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We have sent out some paper on that. I'm sure that Eli and Amelia will be available for comments. We'll make sure you have their contact information as well. And thanks again for joining us today. We know how busy everyone is. And Simon, Rachel, Eli, Amelia, thank you so much for joining. Have a good day, everyone.
Thanks, Ken.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.